been working together for a month. Would you say it's a month? We're on session 5.
Yeah, about a month.
Yeah. And you came to me. Would you describe kind of the state, like what was your behavior like and how are you doing when you decided I'm going to work with Robin? Can you describe?
I was either binging or doing the protocol, no in between at all. Very nervous, all the time, fight or flight, feeling like my mind was crazy.
Do you believe that the protocol really made that worse for you? Before the protocol, your eating issues weren't as severe, were they?
Well, I've always had eating issues, but I definitely think that the protocol made it so much worse.
Yeah. Do you see the link between?
I so easily lost, and then
yeah,
when I gained it back, I needed to go. It was like I need to go back and lose it again. And
do you see the connection between the pride and the ego and the self-centeredism and that righteousness around the thinner body? How that ultimately created this insane tension with food?
Absolutely, I see it now.
You see it now, yeah. It's taken our 5 sessions. So we were just talking about your progress because it hasn't been black and white, has it? It's been sifting through gray, and it's getting clearer for you. If I were to explain how you approach this session, it's hesitant. You're hesitantly optimistic at this point. Am I accurate?
Yeah.
You're like,
I'm optimistic.
Yeah. So
yeah.
We were talking about, you had said to me, I'm still very critical of myself. And I said, oh, and you said, oh, and that's just how I am. I've always been that way. And I said, yeah, no, that's a symptom of someone who is struggling with themselves. And you had said, and how I feel about myself in public. And you had said that. And I was like, you are right on. This is that 3rd hierarchy of need. And we just described all that and how when you believe that being thinner symbolizes a better human, and you believe it, if you aren't thin, your beliefs about thinnerness essentially attack the most valuable psychological need in food, that 1st hierarchy of needs. So you have the smaller hierarchy, 3rd hierarchy of need, trying to attack the first large human foundational psychology, food, and it becomes a nasty, dysfunctional cycle. And how would you say you feel today? So compared to a month ago, are you still binging?
I'm not binging. I'm completely convinced that I'm not going to diet anymore, that it doesn't work.
You feel strongly about that?
Strongly. And also, I don't need to be thin anymore. I'm convinced that I'm not going to fight my body anymore.
And how do you feel about your body? I'd asked this, and your answer was just like, go ahead. This to me is the indication of recovery. This is the indication of recovery. How do you feel about your body?
I'm fine with my body the way it is right now.
It's good enough.
Yep. And I had never been. I always had things that I wanted to fix or whatever. And now when I see friends or coworkers saying those things and talking about their bodies negatively, I'm like, well, I feel so bad because that's where I was. And I don't feel like that anymore.
Do you feel a greater and deeper appreciation too for what it's doing for you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I think what has to happen is you have to really get a clear sense of outside of the body, because the body is, we separate that from how you identify socially. This is my body. And no matter what anybody thinks, I'm not going to change my body. So this is it. And it really relaxes how you are in a social environment. But have you really considered, who are you socially? What are you presenting? And what do you want people to affiliate, or how do you want them to know who you are? Have you really thought about that? If you're going to not be the thin, perfected human being, right? That's the mirage of the fantasy of the perfect body. Then who are you? What makes you safe as a human being in terms of what do you bring to the table of your pack? If you're not the thin supremacist anymore.
I'm a woman, I'm a mother, I'm so many other things.
Yeah, and it really, don't you agree, comes down to just your realness, right? Remember when we were talking about this fantasy mirage that these programs want you to chase, because that's how they make money, right? That's that money machine, is to create an ideal the illusion that if people reach this ideal, whether it's education, religion, body image, spiritual image, whatever it is, we're going to create this fantasy of an ideal, and then you're going to pay us to chase it. And you chase, and we move the standard higher, right? Because otherwise you won't pay us anymore. So now the lesson maybe is that you stay in reality. Be real.
Yeah, I love it.
So, because there's no work. The work is just managing your balance. It's just staying present. You're more connected to people because you're no longer competing. Your true value just comes from your current situation, your current awareness, right? Your current body shouldn't have anything to do with what makes you valuable as a human. The body is a totally different function on this planet. It's to keep you here, right? Under hugely, dynamic environments, right? When the sun comes up, sun goes down, it helps you stay here in consciousness. And ultimately, what you bring is this deep spiritual, simple, very precious, very innocent humanness, right? So if that's all you have to do, what happens to those psychological needs that are so important to life and death? Right? What happens to how you feel about food? I mean, now you just have plenty, right? That's fulfilled because you no longer have to starve yourself to manipulate the body, to manipulate how people see you, to manipulate how you feel in social environments, right?
Yeah. It doesn't have that pull. There's not a crazy relationship anymore.
It should almost feel like the calm after a storm occurs. Like there's huge chaos, storm, waves, and then all of a sudden it should feel like, and it's over. The destruction is behind you, and now you're in this space, right? And so if you really look at what you need to survive, what do you really need to survive?
Food, shelter.
Yes. Do you have those?
Yeah.
Is it enough?
Plenty.
Oh, more than enough, right?
Yeah.
So the next thing would be then, do you feel, in terms of connecting with other humans, do you feel lovable? As you are. No additions.
Yeah.
You were really hesitant, but that's where you're at right now. Am I really lovable if I don't have any proof of lovability? Right? Where's your proof that you're lovable? Do you want to have to carry proof around with you?
No. No. On the contrary, I should feel like I don't need to prove anything.
Not if you're good with yourself, right? If you feel really good with who you are and it's coming from your heart, not from your mind, if you feel really good about who you are as a human, why do you need to have proof to convince someone else? And what's the likelihood you're going to actually be able to convince someone else in their own mind, their own space, their own beliefs, their own history, that you're lovable? Don't you agree that would require that you use their system of lovability to then get that validation?
Yeah.
Did you follow that? Do you understand what I just said?
Yes. If I'm lovable, it's just something innate in me, and that I need to fit some mold.
A program. How's that feel?
Feels good. Feels good to be real, to not have this uneasiness, this competition, this needing to be something or other. That I always felt I needed to be in some sort of diet or program or doing something about it. And now I'm like relaxed.
Yeah, doing something about how crappy a person you are, right? That's kind of the foundation of that motive. You've got to do something about it. About what?
Yeah, exactly.
About this idea that you're an unworthy and not valuable human being at your foundation. So you need to do something about it. You need to go to this church, go to this school, get this type of grade. You need to wear these types of clothes. You need to have this type of belief system. You need to follow this. You need to be here. You need to go to that restaurant because that's the cool one. You got to wear this, right? I mean, the layers and layers and layers of you are not at your core valuable. That's doing something about it. But if you strip all of those programs, those are all lies. Don't you agree? Like, that's a lie.
Yeah.
Those are just programs. You're only valuable inside the program. And that's relative to who's deciding the rules of that program that you've attached to. But if you strip all of that away, you're left with kind of this realness of you as a human being. And what would happen if you decided that right there, the core or the heart of that, stripped of all the programming, is really the only truth that you've had this whole time. The distractions and all of that energy trying to fulfill the desire to be wanted in a pack or tribe by using all of these extrinsic and external programs, it's incredibly demanding, and you never really feel good about yourself because you're constantly chasing something that's changing all the time, right? Think of how the media just constantly changes body image, right? Diet image, food image, health image. You know, if you're using body image, man, sexual image, athletic image, it's always changing. So and people know this in the marketing and business world, by changing it, you are essentially keeping people spending. That's how that system works, right? Moving target. So even if you reach the goal that you set out to reach, you still feel like shit about who you are, right? Because that's the core of the problem. That facade never really changes who you are. It's a facade. So if you feel like crap about who you are, the crappy who you are with the facade still feels like crap. You just have now extra work to maintain the facade. Now you're just more insane, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the willingness to surrender that facade, what it requires is that you're willing to be judged, rejected, abandoned, disapproved of, mocked, pitied from that system. because that system believes that what they do makes you others superior. So if you surrender that, I'm not doing it anymore, you are accepting judgment from that culture, whether it's religious, political, body image, right? Education-wise, you're not getting the proper degree by people who believe that there are superior types of education. You're going to get judged by that type of dogma.
Yeah.
So go back into that self-criticism. How do you come to those criticisms? Do you agree that they were taught to you?
Yeah, probably. Just, yeah, my upbringing, just, that was like my way of assimilating into my environment. And actually, that was what I was scared of, that I wasn't going to be able to do this because of my environment. And what is surprising is that I didn't have to isolate or anything. I'm still around the same people who are doing the same things that I was doing, and I'm fine, just having a different perspective now.
Yeah, you don't have to be destructive in any way. And you can still love those people even though they still believe in that body image. That body image will make them feel better as a human being, right? Or make their human experience better. That's a fantasy too. As if it's the body that provides you your happiness. Can't do that when your perspective comes from lacking, right? It's not good enough. What I have isn't good enough, right? And that's basically the recipe. What I have currently is never good enough. So if we can strip all that away to the foundation of how you identify yourself. So most people going through this process, in fact, everybody who goes through this with me, we essentially are going through an identity crisis. And it's actually an ego false identity crisis because the true self is always there. It's not like the true self is going through crisis. It's the false programming. It's the programming that's going through crisis. Abort mode. This isn't working, right? And when you just have the humility and you feel like you've suffered enough, it's actually a very serene, bizarre place of ease, isn't it? Just done. When you're done, it feels like divorce. Like you just divorced a terrible relationship that you devoted decades of effort, your identity, your money. I mean, think of how much of your life you dedicated to thinking that the body and how it is seen and the idea of health, you actually believed in that wholeheartedly. And did it really bring you joy?
No, mystery.
Misery. Me too. Me too. That's why I'm just done, right? Why put your experience of life in such a tiny space that requires such a huge amount of work? There's really no reward, especially since what you're doing is it's like taking a knife and cutting inside the brain, where your brain's evolution is seeking food. It's like that's what the diet industry does. Food isn't safe. It's dangerous. You can't eat it. You shouldn't eat that. That's bad for you. I mean, that type of fear-mongering has real damaging impact on the human psyche. Sketchiness around food. That's very first world, right? Like you're really going to die by eating Cheetos? No. The human body's evolved for thousands and thousands of years eating a lot worse. Living off the land, right? So I'm really excited. You sound different than you were last session.
Yes.
So are you surprised?
Surprised, you said?
Yeah, are you surprised at how the outcome of what's...
Yes.
Do
Yes,
you,
I am. And the weekend was very different because usually we go out for dinner, and I was relaxed. It was very different.
did you overeat the same way you were when we talked last?
No, I was surprised.
It's easy, right? It's natural.
That I felt full, and I stopped, and my plate was full, and I was looking at it, thinking about it, like, wow, this never happened. Where I don't clean the plate.
Yeah, but you're not depriving anymore. Notice how different it feels, how you're relating to food and how natural it feels. You are no longer threatening your access to food. And it's no longer perceived as dangerous anymore, is it?
Yeah.
Just think of that concept. What do you think happens to the human psyche when you perceive food is dangerous?
Oh my God.
How that impacts your brain.
It must have a horrible impact because you need food. So what a contradiction there. I don't know.
Well, describe how it felt for you in sitting in front of food that you believed and were taught, not because it's real, but because it's been brainwashed. This is dangerous. Danger. Food. Even though it's pleasurable, which is completely... So the system and the brainwashing is conflicting your actual biology, which is saying this is safe, it tastes fine, it's good, it's not bitter, you're not gagging. It's not bleach. I mean, I could see how people are fear-mongering, let's just say sugar, as if it's bleach. That you would have that type of, oh my God, there's bleach on my plate. Instead of, there's sugar, what do I do? Right? Bleach doesn't impact that biological sensation of safety. Right? That would equal danger. Smells like danger. I actually drank bleach as a child. I had massive amount of puking. It was terrible. I remember it. I remember the taste. I remember the fumes coming out my nose. It's nuts. But just think about that for a second. I mean, that's dangerous. But bread, consider that. Bleach, that type of danger, and how this brainwashing diet health cult is trying to make them equally as dangerous. Bleach and bread. Really? Right? Do you see how that might impact your behavior when it doesn't taste like bleach in terms of danger? You can't have that. You shouldn't be eating that. That's bad for you. You're causing damage. You've already ruined it. You've already caused damage just by having one piece of bread. Right? Do you see how that can impact binge eating behavior?
Oh, yeah.
You see that now, right? So when someone, is working with me and they're still overeating, that's an indication. Do you see now that's an indication that you were still feeling bad about your body? Still trying to live through that lens of thinness or not fatness, right?
Yeah.
And yeah. Awesome. If you were to make any, now that you've been through, 5 sessions plus the consult, what would you say to someone who's thinking about working with me? What is it that you now know that, I don't know, that you would want to tell someone considering it?
Well, it's weird to me because I used to listen to your videos and everything, and it never clicked the way it has by talking to you. And what's even more interesting is that now I go and listen to videos that I've listened to before, and somehow they make more sense.
They're connecting for you. Like the dots are connecting.
Yeah.
And you can understand what I'm saying, and you actually can understand how they're feeling from your own experience, right? And it's not like I'm saying a whole lot different, is it?
No, and it's videos that I've heard before, but all of a sudden, I find a way to apply it to my situation, or I feel more open. I can't truly explain it, but it's different.
Mm-hmm.
It really is.
Yeah, good.
It really is.
The hardest thing to do is truly surrender that thinner body image and to really accept that. Don't you agree? That's really hard prior to working with me.
Yeah.
It's like, there's all sorts of reasoning. Robin's crazy. I won't have to do that. I don't know.
I think what did it for me is at points we're having conversations where your response to my spot makes sense and opens up like a whole new idea that I wasn't, or a whole new thing that I wasn't seeing clearly before.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes there's little blocks, yeah. And a lot of times it's like there's a belief that you have that I had to have to go, no, that's not true. You're holding on to something and you'll never get past it with that. There's little things in there, yeah. Well, all right. Thanks for letting me share this.